How do you preach after that? Whew. I want to say thank you. Anything that I might have given, I've received many, many times more from you. As a young boy, I can remember asking God to use me. I told him, I said, I don't care if you even let me know. If you'll just use me, if you're happy. Well, I'm thankful that he didn't abide by that one. He has let me know here this morning in a very special way that maybe I have touched some lives. And it's only because of Jesus. It's only because of Jesus. You know, life is a journey. Every one of us are on that journey. We don't know when it'll end either. We probably don't remember it starting either. Our journey started when we were small, and time goes along. And as we take this journey, sometimes God takes us down trails that we never expected, trails that He has for us, and there's certain reasons for those trails, that journey that He has. And one journey I believe in my life that God continues to have me go down is that journey to surrender. The journey to surrender. And that word surrender and that journey is not something, that journey is not a journey that the flesh likes to take. I'm going to let you know if you didn't know. Flesh does not like to go the route of surrender. Christ, it was hard on Him when He surrendered His life on the cross. And as we die to our flesh, as we allow flesh to die, as we mortify the flesh, as we put flesh on the cross, God is pleased and He receives the glory. In Genesis, the 22nd chapter, I want to read about a man and talk about a man this morning whose name is Abraham. And God has worked with me, as a matter of fact, worked through Abraham to get me right here in this church. As I was in prayer with my prayer partner in my closet, or really my office, but it was a closet, as I was praying with him, God helped me to know that I was for sure to leave Asheboro, North Carolina, and come to Shreveport, Louisiana. And I'm thankful that God has led me here. But Abraham, your journey with him, you never know which way it's going to turn. You don't know when it's going to stop, when it's going to go, what way it's going to be. But the key is to follow Him. Amen. That's the key. There's a lot of different voices that'll try to get you to go different directions. It's so important that you build a relationship with Jesus, that you can hear His voice. Right. And you can know that it's Him speaking to you and not all these other voices. Abraham, 22nd chapter, verse 1 and 2, it says, sometime later, God tested Abraham's faith. Abraham, God called. Yes, he replied, here I am. Take your son, your only son, yes, Isaac, whom you love so much, and go to the land of Moriah. Go and sacrifice him as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will show you. This morning I want to share with you 3 places Abraham had to pass on this journey to surrender. In Genesis, Abraham, I think one of the first places he had to go and paths that he had to take was Doubt Street. Anybody ever been down Doubt Street? Anybody ever come up on that sign along the way that says doubt? You ever hear that voice that speaks to you and says doubt? Genesis 22:2, it says, this is the verse following, it says, the next morning Abraham got up early. He saddled his donkey and took 2 of his servants with him, along with his son Isaac. Then he chopped wood for a fire and an offering and set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day of their journey, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. Stay here with the donkey, Abraham told the servants. The boy and I will travel a little further. We will worship there, and then we will come right back. Very important you hear the we's in there. It doesn't in here simply doubt that Abraham, it doesn't say that Abraham doubted. And maybe he didn't doubt. He had faith. He didn't doubt. But I know one thing for sure, that the tempter tried to get him to doubt. The tempter did. You know, he wants us to doubt. Jesus himself was tempted. He was tempted. He was tempted to doubt, but he didn't doubt. We can be tempted, but we don't have to doubt. Matthew, the 4th chapter, verses 1 through 3 says, "And then Jesus, led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil." He was tempted. "And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterwards and hungered. And when the tempter came to him, he said, 'If thou be the Son of God, command these stones to be made bread.'" You see, he put that "if." That was the question mark. That was the doubt. If. It tried to put that doubt in his mind. When we're tempted to doubt, I want to share 3 things real quickly here. When we're tempted to doubt, is when we have always believed in what we've always believed in, or when what we've always trusted it's just not looking real good. Have you ever had anything in your life that you really trusted in and you believed in, and it was your foundation, it was something you were holding on, and all of a sudden it's shaky, it feels shaky? You see, that's where Abraham was. You see, Isaac was the promised son. God had promised Abraham that he would have a son by Sarah, and it was Isaac, and he says it was his only son. The thing is he was asking him to sacrifice his only. He was asking for him to give up that which he had promised him. You see, God wants us totally surrendered, every bit of us, to the point that the things he's given us, that we've surrendered them. That nobody else, nothing else, not anything, not anyone is put before him. When circumstances seem greater than our abilities and they're out of our control, we're tempted to doubt. You know, Abraham, I was thinking about this morning. Abraham, he didn't doubt. He didn't have to doubt. You know why he didn't have to doubt? It's because he realized that it wasn't in his hands any longer. He had surrendered his life and his everything, and it was in God's hands. And he knew, he had faith that God would take care of what needed to be taken care of. We have to recognize it's only through Jesus that we can do anything. It's not in us. It's not in our flesh. All I can do is fail in my flesh. But through Jesus, I can be a winner. Through Jesus, I can have victory. Through Jesus and through the blood. When we doubt, when we don't find much encouragement. You know, I don't think that Abraham had much encouragement. Do you on this journey? There's times in our life we don't have much encouragement. It's like we're all alone. We're all alone. But you know what we need to do? We need to get to the place to realize that Jesus is all we need. We don't need encouragement around. We can't depend upon a lot of things. People, those that we love even, to really encourage us. But I want to tell you something. Jesus will never let you down. Jesus will always be there. He'll be there to lift you up when you go down. He'll be there to pour on the oil and the wine when you've been cut or when you've been bruised inside, when things have been said about you and when you've been hurt, when you've been made to look bad, when you've been embarrassed, when you've been lied about, when you've been cursed. He's there to bring healing to your heart. You see, the devil tries to get us to do this. He wants us to doubt our beliefs and believe our doubts. That's what he wants. He wants us to do what? Doubt our beliefs. He wants us to doubt what we believe. He wants us to doubt what our foundation is. He wants us to doubt everything about the kingdom. He wants us to doubt our righteousness. He wants us to doubt our salvation. He wants us to doubt even people around us, that are friends and those that love us and those who are in the body. He wants us to doubt them. He tries to get doubt in there. He wants us to doubt our beliefs, but He wants us to believe our doubts. The next place Abraham had to travel was through unknown valley. Unknown alley. It's a valley too, believe me. Unknown alley. Have you ever, are you ready now? Are y'all ready? Are you ready to go into the unknown? People are afraid of the unknown. They're afraid. There's a fear, one of the greatest fears they have. Why? Because the unknown is where I'm out of control. But you know what? That's what God wants. He wants us out of control. And I don't mean wild out of control. That's not what I mean. But He wants to be able to control us. He wants to be able to lead us. He wants to be able to guide us. What would it be like in our lives if early in our age, I've thought about this about myself, if I would have stayed tapped in and if I would have really listened when God started dealing with me, and I know He spoke to me as a young child, if I would have just listened and not got off the mark and stayed, what I could have done in the kingdom today, so much more I could do than what maybe has been affected here, affected more people's lives than just in this room, and I trust I have. But if we were just, what could we do right here? Jesus took 12, and He did it with 12. How many right here, if we was really zeroed in? Are you ready to go somewhere you've never been before? If you walk with God, He'll send you on that journey. He's going to take you somewhere you've never been before. And we don't like that. You know what I'm finding out about age? The older I get, the more I don't want to go into the unknown. I want everything to be just drawn out for me, and I want to know where I'm putting my feet. I want to know where I'm going. But walking with Jesus is not that way. You have to learn to do a lot of things. I was, as a young boy, I used to go to basketball practice. Played, it was when I was in elementary school. Played on the basketball team for Ramble Elementary in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And one afternoon, my mom couldn't come get me, and she says, I want you to walk home. Well, basketball practice was late, and it was when it was getting dark. It was dusk. It was getting dark. And I came down Ramble, and I came down fast because I wanted to get home. I did not like being out alone in the dark, especially on Park Avenue there. I lived right off of Park Avenue. Well, on Park Avenue was a church, and then there was a restaurant. I can't remember what it was. And then there was a gas station. And between the gas station and the restaurant was an alley. An alley. And it was like, I would look down that alley. I would even go down it in the day. I would walk around the gas station, or I would walk around the church just so I didn't have to go through that alley. But when I looked down that alley and it was getting dark, and it was dark by the time I got there, and I looked down and I could not see the bush and what was in the bushes. I couldn't see what was behind the corner. I didn't know what was going to go on. I didn't know what was going to come out. And I looked down. It looked like it was about 5 miles long. You ever been there? About 5 miles long in this alley. It was something, I didn't know what was going to pop out. And I thought, well, if I'm going to go through there, they're going to have to catch me. And so I took off running down that alley, and I got about halfway down the alley, and all of a sudden a car turned in, and its headlights were on me. And I'm standing there with the bright lights in my eyes. And you know what happens when you get fear on you and your imagination just goes wild? In 3 seconds, I was dead. I'd already gone through them catching me and doing this and doing this and doing that, and I was dead. And they were out with a shovel getting ready to bury me in my mind. And that car started coming for me. You know what I did? I turned around and took off running the other way, and I was about halfway down. And I took off running. That car's going right behind me, and it's honking like that. And all of a sudden, the car stopped, and my mom stepped out. She says, Doyce, stop! Unknown alley. There's a lot of things that go on in our life in the unknown alleys. But God will take you down places that you don't know. And you can't let fear overcome you. You can't let fear consume you. Unknown alley is where fear will take us and will try to control you. As you walk with God, you'll go through some of those. And you can't let fear overcome you. You can't listen to fear speak to you. You can't listen to fear speak to you. One woman was talking about, I read this article, one woman was talking about going to a local zoo. And she went to this place, and they had this new thing. It was called the House of Night. And I don't know, maybe some of you read this. But what it was a place where you go in, it was dark, and they had all these critters that flew, that crawled on the ground, that were in trees and bushes and stuff, and they would walk through that, and in the night they would be able to see them. They'd have little dim lights, and they could see these critters that wouldn't come out during the day. And so this lady, she liked going through that because she just liked scary stuff, sort of, you know. And so she walked inside, and when she did, something grabbed her hand. And she realized it was a little small hand. And it was holding on to her, and she says, "Hey, what's your name?" "My name's Billy." "Billy? Oh, okay. Who do you belong to?" "You, as long as we're in the dark." You know. Abraham had to travel through Unknown Valley when he was on this journey to surrender. He had to travel through it. He didn't really know what was ahead. He just had to just believe. Genesis 22:6-7, it says, "So Abraham placed the wood for the burnt offering on Isaac's shoulders, while he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the two of them walked on together, Isaac turned to Abraham," and I can't tell you how I feel when I read this, and he said, "Father." "Yes, my son," Abraham replied. "We have the fire. We have the wood," the boy said. "But where's the sheep for the burnt offering?" Can you imagine how Abraham must have felt? Can you imagine that? How could he do that? How could he do that? How could he? Remember Abraham? Remember when God earlier had come up to Abraham and he said, "Go to a place I will show you"? Remember? He says, "What I want you to do is leave all your family, your kin, you and your daughters, your close kin, you go." And he left. He left. God didn't give him where, he just said go. And he went. He didn't know what was going to happen. You see, it was something unknown. It was a place unknown. He didn't have a map, but he had to leave the people and his father's household. And he said he'd show him the way. Well, Abraham went, but you know what happened? God blessed him. God blessed him over and over again. What a ride. Because he was willing to travel through an unknown alley, a place that he had never been before. And I think sometimes in our life, we're so fearful of these unknown alleys that we won't go in those places that's never been there before. We've never been there before. Or even if we've been through it and it's dark, we won't. Unknown alley. Now let's read on here in verse 8. It says, "And Abraham said to his son, God will provide himself a lamb for the burnt offering." So they both went together. The reason he could tell Isaac God would provide a lamb is because this wasn't the first time that he had gone into the place of the unknown, the alley of the unknown. It might not have been that exact alley, but it was another one. See, he had already left. He had already obeyed God. The problem is that the first time, I believe he learned from the first time, because you know what he did? He did something wrong. You know what he did wrong? He took Lot. And man, Lot was a problem all the rest of the way. It's just a bad situation because he didn't do what God said. Lot came along and just messed up his whole trip, just about. But he had a lot of things happen that I feel like as we read, we felt and sensed that hurt him, Abraham. But what happened here is when he left, He remembered, I made a mistake there. I didn't do what God said. I need to do what He says. I need to do it the way He says. All right to the T. I need to know when He's spoken to me and told me to do something, I cannot not do what He says. And so when He said, I mean, you think of this, when God said, okay, I want you to go sacrifice your son. Your son is the sacrifice, your only son. And He did that. The reason He could do that, enter into that place of unknown and have that faith, is because He had already seen when He entered into that place of the unknown before, God provided, God took care of, and God would do it again. So your unknown ahead, think about the unknowns behind you that God has helped you through. And He'll help you go through the unknowns that are in front of you and the dark alleyways. Abraham also had to go through the intersection of trust. Ooh, that's a big word. Trust. It's hard to trust. It's hard to trust. Everyone will probably have to go through this intersection too, one time or another in their life. Trust. What is trust? Let me tell you one thing trust is not. Trust is not trying to work it out yourself. That's exactly what Abraham did. You see, he wanted a son. He didn't trust. He wanted a son. And God told him he was going to have a son of promise. But what happened is he took matters into his own hands. And he had a child by a handmaiden. Guess what? Problems. Later on, of course, Isaac comes, and there was discourse between Hagar and Sarah. There was trouble there in the house. So it matters. It matters that we hear and obey. And not do things our way, the way we want it. It's important that we listen to God's directions. And sometimes we need to be careful, because a lot of times what we think is God's directions is really our desire. You need to hear that. A lot of times the things we think is God's directions is our desire. Oh, God's in this. Oh, you need to ask God, God, is this really you? Or is this really me? Or is this really Slewfoot? You see, right here, I'm going to take this out. Sonny, come up here. I like Sonny. They wrote a song after him. Come on up here. Sonny, yesterday my life was filled with rain. There you go, brother. I have a little chore for you, okay? Sure. This is not for you, okay? But what I want you to do, this is going to be a rose. It is a rose, it's a bud. But I want you to pull it apart and make it into a rose, if you would, right now. Yeah, try. See. Try to pull it. You got to make it bud out. Come on, come on out. There you go. He's doing pretty good. Make it real wide. That's it. Pull it on out.
We got time.
I think this side needs to be opened up a little bit over there. Okay, thank you.
Oh.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to let you take that home, give it to your wife.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
You see what happens when we try to do it our way? See how it works? But as God does it, and He does it at the right time, in the right way, at His pace, the way He wants to do it, what happens is it'll come out like this. It'll come out like this. Unfolding of a rose is only a tiny rosebud, a flower of God's design. But I cannot unfold the petals with these clumsy hands of mine. No offense, brother. The secret of unfolding flowers is not known to such as I. God opens this flower so sweetly when in my hands they fade and die. If I cannot unfold a rosebud, this flower of God's design, then how can I think I have wisdom to unfold this life of mine? So I will trust in Him for His leading each moment and every day. I will look to Him for His guidance each step of the pilgrim way. The pathway that lies before me, only my Heavenly Father knows. I'll trust Him to unfold the moments, each as He unfolds, just as He unfolds the rose. The intersection of trust. When we try to unfold certain segments of our life and make life happen, and we do that, the way He did that, we try to do that with our life. We try to unfold certain, and we need to allow God. If it's going to happen, say, God, lead me, guide me, show me what I'm to do, and then you take care of the rest. You let Him do His part. Most of the time, we become God, and we do it our way, and we don't allow God to show us or to let God work in His time. See, He knew exactly how long it would take, how much sunshine. He knew where that little bud was for it to open up like it needed to. The reason Abraham was able to trust is because he had surrendered before. At first, I saw God as my observer, a judge, keeping track of the things I did wrong. So, to know whether I merit heaven or hell when I die. He was out there sort of like a president. I recognized his picture when I saw it, but really didn't know him. But later on, when I met Christ, it seemed as though life was rather like a bike ride. But it was a tandem bike. And I noticed that Christ was in the back helping me pedal. Did you hear that? I don't know just when it was that He suggests we change places. But life has not been the same since. When I had control, I knew the way. It was rather boring, predictable, and it was usually the easiest, fastest, and shortest way. Distance really between 2 points. But when He took the lead, He knew delightful long cuts. That's God. A lot of times when you're on those long cuts, you know what He's doing? He's teaching you patience. He's teaching you to really listen to Him and see if you're going to do it yourself or you're going to listen to Him. Up the mountain and through the rocky places at neck break speeds. It was all I could do to hang on. Even though it looked like madness, He said, pedal. I was worried and was anxious and asked, where are you taking me? He laughed and didn't answer. You ever ask Him, where are you taking me? I have, recently. And I started to learn to trust. I forgot my boring life and entered into an adventure that when I would say, I'm scared, He would lean back and touch my hand. He took me to people with gifts that I needed. That's good stuff right there. There's certain people we need to be around. We need to learn from. We need to feel. We need to gain spiritual wisdom and understanding that have been through. A lot of times, let me tell you something, young people. I'm going to preach to you right now. Young people, listen to older people. They've been down some of the roads that you haven't been down. And they could tell you some things and some bumps and ways to go. Old people, listen to young people. Because there's a lot of new ways that are a lot better than some of the ways we go. Gifts gifts of healing, acceptance, and joy. They gave us gifts to take on my journey. My extra baggage, too much weight. So I did. To the people we met, I gave it away, and found in giving, received. And still our burden was light. I did not trust him at first in control of my life. I thought he'd wreck it, but he knows bike secrets, knows how to make it bend and take sharp corners, knows how to jump into clear high rocks, and knows how to fly through the short and scary passages. And I'm learning to shut up and pedal in the strangest places. And I'm beginning to enjoy the view and the cool breeze in my face with my delightful, constant companion, Jesus Christ. And when I'm sure I just can't do it anymore, he just smiles and says, pedal. It's important that along this journey that we let Jesus be our chauffeur. Let him do the driving. We must let go and let God. If it's all about him, why is it all about us? We have to let go and let God. You know what it's called? It's a word I've mentioned already. It's called surrendering. That's what letting go and letting God is. It's called surrendering. Not just surrendering, but surrendering all. Surrendering all is the evidence of your faith in God. If you have faith in God, you'll trust him. If you really have faith in God, you'll trust him. Faith is trusting God. We sing a song. We go down to the altar and we kneel. And we sing, it's called I Surrender All. But we might sing, I surrender some. I surrender some to Jesus. I surrender some. Or maybe it's even this. I surrender most. I surrender. You don't want your some. He don't want your most. He wants your all. Your all. How much is all? That's everything. Everything. Not just part, but everything. What's everything? Nothing left. Zero, zilch. We sing, is your all on the altar? Have you longed for sweet peace and for faith to increase, and have earnestly and fervently prayed? But you cannot find rest or be perfectly blessed until all on the altar is laid. Maybe that's the problem you're not getting through in your prayers. Maybe that's the reason that you don't have that peace in your heart, is because it's not all laid down. You haven't surrendered it all. In verse 5, in Genesis 22, it says, and Abraham said to the young man, abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship and come back again. What did he just say? Abraham trusted God would make a way. That's what he did. He trusted God would make a way. Because he trusted God, he had peace. He trusted God. He had peace. If you surrender all, no matter where he leads you on this journey, he will always make a way. He will always make a way. The problem is, most of our life, we have done it my way. We have done it my way. And a little play on words here. Lot of cases call it his way. John 14:6 says, Jesus answered, I am the what? Way, the truth, and the life. He is the way. He knows the way. He is the way. He knows the way. If it's your way, it's probably the wrong way. Her name was Susan. Susan was 33 years old, beautiful lady with children. Was diagnosed with an illness. The results of a treatment that she took caused her to go totally blind. She was overwhelmed. She was depressed. She couldn't handle it. She didn't know what she was going to do. At a young age, a young family, children. For about a year, she moped around until finally one day her husband Mark said, "Hey, honey, you can't do this any longer. This has got to stop." He says, you're going to have to get out of this house. I'm going to suggest that maybe you get a part-time job. "Oh, I can't get a job. I can't work. I can't even see where I've got. I don't know where I've got. I'm having to fill around the house." He said, "No, honey, I'll help you. I'll help you." And so he did. She found a job. He took her. And he would drop her off. And that went about 3 months, and he realized, hey, this ain't going to work. I can't drive her, and I can't take her, and I can't do all this and do all that. She's going to have to learn to do this on her own. He says, "Honey, you're going to have to do this." "I can't do it. I can't do it." He says, "Well, let's do this." He said, "I'm going to take you down to the bus stop. We're going to walk down there." She had her walk down there. How many steps? He walked it with her. He helped her get on the bus. He helped her count the steps. He helped her get up and helped her get in the seat, and she got in the seat in the proper place. He rode with her all the way down the street and went through the stops, and they counted the stops so she knew what stop to let them know it was her time to get off. He helped her get in off that. He did that for about 2 or 3 days. And she says, I think I can do it now. I think I can do it. And he says, "Okay, you're on your own, honey." So the next morning she got up and she got dressed and she went down to the bus stop and she stood there and the bus came. She got on, she went through the process and she made it. She says, "Hey, man, I'm doing this." She did that Monday, she did that Tuesday, she did that Wednesday, she did that Thursday. And then Friday came, she's on her way home in the bus. And the bus driver says, "Ma'am, can I tell you something?" She said, "Well, sure." She was wondering if it was her at first because she couldn't see. She said, "Are you talking to me?" He says, "Yeah." She says, "You're a lucky person." She says, "I am." "Yeah." Says, "Well, I'm a new bus driver, and I picked you up, and you would always go, and every day, on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and today, Friday." He said, "I would watch you get on, and when you would come out the door, there was a man in a military uniform over there," which her husband was in the military, "standing over there, and he watches you as you come out. He watches you at the bus stop. He watches you get on. And then you go all the way home, and when you get to the other bus stop, he's waiting there to see you come. And he's waiting there, and he watches you go home." And she says, "That's my husband. That's my husband." He says, you're a lucky woman. You're a lucky woman." Well, I want to say this. You know, there's times in our life when we are in those alleys and we have to trust, and we're going through places in our life. We don't understand where we are on our journey. We don't understand it all. Let me say this. You may not always see God, but He can always see you. He can always see you. So wherever you are, wherever your battles are, wherever your struggles are, He's right there looking. The second thing I want to say to you in closing is this. Stop doing it your way and surrender it all. Surrender it all. I want to tell you something. It's a lot harder to do it your way than it is to surrender. Oh, it's not easy, but the outcome, the end, the reward is so much greater if you'll surrender. Let's stand. Maybe this morning you would like to come forward and pray. Maybe God dealt